Hello, hi, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Olivia and today we are getting into some books. I've been seeing a trend go around on TikTok and YouTube where people talk about and rate every book that they read in 2023, and I needed to hop on that train. So we are going to be going through the 32 books that I read in 2023. Most of them I downloaded onto my Kindle. I don't have a lot of the physical copies, so I will be putting up a little picture of each and every book in case you want to download it or get it yourself. I didn't have a reading goal for this past year, but I feel like 32 is pretty good. Like that's like more than 2 books every month. And this year I am creating a goal and I'm hoping to reach 40. So if you have a reading goal or, you know, have any recommendations, please let me know. Also, PSA before we dive into it, actually 2 PSAs. The first one, I read a lot of thrillers this past year. So if you're not into that, I totally get it. You can skip around. I have some other good books in here, but if you would just like to, you know, return to the channel at another point in time when I'm back to doing vlogs and other things, totally fine. Second PSA, I have my laptop here with me because I wrote down my thoughts and my ratings for all the books. So if I'm looking down, that's what we're looking at. Okay, now let's get into it. The first book I read this year was False Witness by Karin Slaughter. I really like her and her writing, and this book proved to be the same. It's about 2 sisters who survived some severe childhood trauma and just the different ways that both of them kind of try to get through that in their adult life. It involves secrets, murders, and revenge. So if you're into any of that, I highly recommend, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next up was definitely a lighter read. I read Yearbook by Seth Rogen. I read a lot of I feel like more depressing memoirs, so this was kind of a nice switch up. It was definitely obviously sillier, more lighthearted. It talks about coming of age stories, his family growing up, drugs of course, hanging out with celebrities, and was just a nice, quick, easy memoir to read. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson is the sequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I really enjoyed the first book. Once again, this one did not disappoint. I equally enjoyed the second installation as well. This book focuses on a girl named Pip, and if you read the first one, you know all this backstory, but Pip had solved a crime in the previous book and is now doing a true crime podcast, just kind of recapping that until she gets sucked back in. She claims she is done being a detective, but once someone goes missing, she knows that she has to jump back in and help the police discover who did it. For me, both the original and the sequel are 4 out of 5 stars. Don't Look for Me by Wendy Walker follows a story of a mom who disappears, and the police and everyone else is considering it a walk away. Like her car was just left and there's some note that supposedly the mother wrote that she is just, you know, moving on from her husband and her daughter, but her daughter knows that something is up and she needs to figure out what happened to her. On a stormy night, the mom's car breaks down and she gets picked up by a strange man, never to be seen again. Her daughter Nicole is getting closer and closer to finding out what actually happened to her mom and is unraveling different secrets throughout the town. I wanted to yell during this book so bad as Nicole gets closer to finding out her mom. I just want to be like, oh my god, she is right here. Like, she is so close to you. I feel like it's kind of like a TV show playing up in your head. Definitely enjoyed this one immensely. And what did I rate it? I rated it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, so high praise. We love a dysfunctional family, and this book brings all the dysfunction. This is called Family of Liars by E. Lockhart, and it is the prequel to We Were Liars. It takes us back to the summer of 1985, where the main character Caroline is dealing with the grief of her dead, recently drowned 10-year-old sister, and she's getting increasingly more frustrated as her parents and her sisters move on with their lives and act as if nothing has happened. She quickly finds out some lies that have been told and what it takes to be a part of this family. This is a story about tragedy, secrets, and lies within a family, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm a big Lisa Jewell girly, and The Family Remains did not disappoint. This is a sequel to The Family Upstairs, which I had read the previous year. You don't necessarily need to read one to enjoy the other, but I recommend reading both. Both are excellent books, and I feel like it gives you a little bit more insight into what's going on in this book if you read the first one. Apparently, I was also really into sequels and prequels this year because we got more sequels coming up and we just talked about some as well. But that just means that the author and the stories are really good because I went back in for seconds. This is another thriller about family secrets, facing the past. And although I liked the first book a little bit more, I would still rate this one a 4 out of 5. Guys, we need to talk about Daisy Darker because it is the scariest book I've ever read. Like, please, and you know, maybe, I'm sure if I read Stephen King that would be scarier, but for me, this book was terrifying. I gave it a 3.5, I believe. What did I give it? Yeah, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I would have rated it higher, but it literally gave me nightmares, so had to drop her down a notch or two. It's about a girl who has to go celebrate her Nana's 80th birthday on this remote island with her estranged family. But one by one, the family members are getting killed off. It just is terrifying. And let me know if you love it, if you've read it, if you plan on reading it. Please send me a DM after you finish it and let me know if you were terrified. I hope this doesn't turn you off from the book because it was a great book, but for babies like me, I can never pick it back up again. I am obsessed with Sally Hepworth's writing, and The Younger Wife was incredible. So this follows Stephen, who is a heart surgeon, and he is getting remarried. But before he can get remarried, he has to divorce his old wife, who can no longer speak. The younger wife, mind you, is younger than their 2 daughters. So the daughters are assuming, I mean, I would also assume that she is a gold digger and that something is up with her and Stephen, because clearly with the mother being sick and not being able to speak, like, there's just something is afoot. Something's not adding up here. So it follows the 2 sisters trying to expose the younger wife, Heather, as a potential gold digger, but she has secrets of her own. So if you want to find out what happens with that, highly recommend, and I will give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I grew up watching The Duggars, so when I came across Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Duggar, I knew that I had to give it a read. Unfortunately, it was not quite what I expected. She more so is talking about her religion and how she has kind of come to terms with it, and it might look different than when she was younger, but just kind of unraveling all of that. Totally great for her. I grew up religious. I have my own, you know, history and background with it. But to be honest, it was not giving me like the juicy details that I wanted. I wanted to know more about how she grew up, how she feels about that. And it was just a little too religious heavy for me. So I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. On the other hand, Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar was exactly what I was looking for. It's a much more in-depth retelling and reflection of growing up as a Duggar, having 18 other siblings, being on TV, and the struggles of separating her wants and needs from her family. I'm nosy and I love to know about the behind the scenes of families, especially a group as polarizing as the Duggars. So Jill is now married to Derek and has a family of her own and is done with the secrets and manipulation. I really respect her vulnerability and bravery with telling this, because I know that it has put a strain on her and her family, and obviously has continued to put her in the limelight, which, you know, she's just a wife and a mom who's trying to do what's best for her kids. So I highly respected everything that she was willing to share and just her entire journey. And I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I read a decent amount of memoirs this year, clearly, and my 5-star memoir of the year was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I grew up watching Jennette on Nickelodeon and obviously had no idea that she was suffering with all of these different afflictions behind the scenes, eating disorders, trying to please her mother, providing for her family, and just living in a very toxic household. So for her to come out and share these stories with us once again, I completely respect the vulnerability and bravery that it takes to create something so heartfelt and darkly comedic, especially revolving around the death of her own mother. Jennette recounts her childhood, her struggle with her mom, her eating disorders, different toxic relationships that she was a part of, and just her overall journey and how it's not always linear. Like I said, I give her all the love and respect in the world, and this was definitely worth 5 stars. Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun by Ellie Cosimano, I believe is how you pronounce her name, sorry if it's not, is the 3rd book of the Finlay Donovan series. So it follows Finlay, a single mom and aspiring author, and her nanny and partner in crime, Vero. They are currently in debt to the Russian mob and must find a contract killer before the cops do. If this plot sounds crazy to you, it's because it really is, but if you read the first 2 books, you will be caught up. This is one that I would definitely go in order for, and you know, I really enjoyed it. It's not quite YA, but it's nothing like too intense. I think it's really great, and I gave it, I believe, a 3.75 stars. On a Quiet Street was excellent. It is by Sofina Nova Glass, and it follows 3 women: Cora, who believes her husband Finn is cheating on her; Paige, Cora's best friend, who is trying to prove that the death of her son wasn't an accident; and Georgia, a reclusive young mother with a secret. This book was filled with twists and turns that kept me enthralled from beginning to end. For that reason, I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next up is Janice Hallett's The Appeal. This is told in the form of texts, emails, and letters, and follows the Fairway Players, a local theater group that is rocked by the tragedy of the director's granddaughter being diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. They all rally together to get money for the granddaughter's treatment, but not everybody believes that this has good intentions. When a dead body is found the next day, 2 young lawyers must sift through emails, messages, and letters to find the killer. This was a solid murder mystery, but I'm only giving it 3 stars due to the writing style. I feel like it's like, it almost is clunky to have it broken down by like emails and letters rather than like normal novel form. But if you're into that, highly recommend. Overall, good murder mystery. My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell was in fact very dark. The story is told in first person from the point of view of Vanessa and alternates between her teenage years at boarding school and the present day, which is 2017. While at boarding school, 15-year-old Vanessa has an affair with a 42-year-old English teacher named Jacob Strain, believing that she has the power and the ability to consent. She thinks that this man is her first love and that they are meant to be together. Flash forward to 2017, and another former student has accused Strain of sexually abusing her while at school. Vanessa struggles to come to terms with this new information and the trauma that comes along with it. It's a difficult read for sure, but I would rate it 5 stars. A Novel Obsession by Caitlin Barish follows an aspiring novelist, Naomi, who stalks and writes about her boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, Rosemary. Naomi becomes friends with Rosemary under false pretenses and without her boyfriend's knowledge, telling lies to everyone around her. How far will she go to write the perfect ending? The book has an interesting premise, but I felt that it dragged on for a little too long and could have been wrapped up a bit sooner, so I gave her 3 out of 5 stars. All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham is yet another mystery thriller. Isabel Drake's entire existence revolves around finding her toddler son Mason, who was taken out of his crib in the middle of the night while she and her husband were asleep in the next room. She hasn't slept in a year and is constantly trying to go through police reports and find any new clues that she can. And then she meets a true crime podcaster who claims he can help her find her son. So she starts talking to this podcaster and is trying to get any new information or any new witnesses on where Mason went. Okay, sorry, my camera stopped recording. Anyways, as she goes further and further into searching for her son and dealing with this true crime podcast, she doesn't start to trust her memory of what happened to Mason. So you'll have to read to find out if she discovers what really happened to her son. And now that I'm looking back on it too, a lot of true crime podcast related books in this haul, all great choices, 4 stars. Okay, My Sister the Serial Killer is next up, and I took this little quote off of, I think it was Amazon or Goodreads. Describes it as a short, darkly funny hand grenade of a novel about a Nigerian woman whose younger sister has a very inconvenient habit of killing her boyfriends. I don't want to give too much away with this one, but I really enjoyed reading it and just seeing the sisters' dynamics, and would rate it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson is a classic whodunit set up in a snowed-in ski resort. Ernest is forced to go on a family reunion in the mountains, but after a dead body is found, they all become suspects in the murder. The author describes how each family member has killed someone in the past before the family discovers who's committed the most recent killing. This was a fun murder mystery, and for that, I will give it 3.75 out of 5 stars. I picked up The Babysitter, My Summers with a Serial Killer by Liza Rodman and Jennifer Jordan because it is set up in Cape Cod, and that is right where I grew up and I still visit to this day. So hearing about this or reading about this was equally parts fascinating and terrifying because right in my backyard. It's a true story that follows a young girl who befriends her babysitter, and she is unaware that he is actually a serial killer. I went through a bit of a dark reading phase because all of these are about killers. But this was an interesting true crime one, and like I said, it's in a place that I have grown up by, and I had never heard about this story, so it was definitely fascinating to read, and I gave it 3.75 out of 5 stars. The Golden Spoon is like if the Great British Baking Show had a crossover episode with like Clue or some kind of murder mystery. 6 amateur bakers arrived at Grafton Manor to compete for the Golden Spoon. But as show week begins, sabotage comes along with it, and soon a body is found. I am obsessed with the Great British Baking Show and clearly obsessed with mysteries. So putting those two together, chef's kiss, if you will, baker's kiss, if you will. I won't actually, that was very stupid, but I rated this book 4 stars. We have a few more left, and next up is Notes on an Execution by Dana Kafka. It's about Ansel Packer, a serial killer who is scheduled to die in 12 hours. It is told through the voices of 3 women, a mother, a sister, and a homicide detective. I really liked this quote written about it. It says, blending breathtaking suspense with astonishing empathy, Notes on an Execution presents a chilling portrait of womanhood as it simultaneously unravels the familiar narrative of the American serial killer, interrogating our system of justice and our cultural obsession with crime stories, asking readers to consider the false promise of looking for meaning in the psyches of violent men. And I really like that because the women are really trying to find this like, well, he's this and he's that and he's not always violent, and you know how the story goes. So being able to write an entire book kind of based around that, very impressive, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This next one is unlike anything I've ever read before. Confessions by Kanae Minato was very different than anything I've ever read before. Yuko Moriguchi's 4-year-old child is murdered by 2 of her students, and she delivers one final lecture before quitting teaching to exact revenge on the student she thinks did it. This book was wild, and I rated it 3.75 out of 5 stars. All right, we probably have all read it by this point, but I finally just read it this past year, and that is The Hotel Nantucket by Elin Hilderbrand. I need to read more of her books. They are so fun, a nice light beach read. After a fire in 1922 killed 19-year-old chambermaid Grace Hadley, the Hotel Nantucket became an abandoned eyesore. That is, until it was purchased and completely redone by Xavier Darling. Xavier hires Lisbeth as the general manager, and she in turn hires a ragtag team of staff to help her run things. They face their own challenges, and the ghost of Grace won't stop haunting the hotel until her murder is acknowledged. We got another 5-star on our hands right there. Quincy Carpenter survived a massacre while on vacation with her friends and became a member of the Final Girls. This small group includes Quincy, Sam, and Lisa, who all survived horrific tragedies. They're all trying to move past their trauma in some way until Lisa is found dead in her bathtub and Sam appears at Quincy's front door. Final Girls by Riley Sager is a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Goodrich People kind of gives Ready or Not vibes. I have never actually seen that film, but I have watched TikToks, you know, showing bits and pieces, so you can call me an expert. It pretty much follows this girl who gets engaged to this guy. He takes her back to his parents' house, and she has to survive the night there while his entire family hunts her if she wants to marry this man. And at that point, I'd be like, absolutely not, I'm out of here. But I feel like upon watching the movie, it would probably be like she can't leave or she'll get killed regardless. Anyways, this book gave me similar vibes to that. This book has those same weird family dynamics where Graham and his mother play this game of ruining people's lives, and Layla, Graham's wife, is now being forced to participate in order to like prove herself worthy of being in the family. Graham's wife, Lila, now has to prove her loyalty by ruining the life of Demi, a woman who moves in downstairs. The game quickly devolves into chaos, and lives certainly will be ruined. 3 out of 5 stars. Bad Summer People by Emma Rosenblum is another great beach read. Revolving around the couples of Salcombe Fire Island, this summer starts like any other until a body is discovered off the boardwalk. I love the small scale drama of this book. Just like, I feel like it's like hearing hometown gossip minus the dead bodies. I rated this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Bunny by Mona Awad. Can we talk about it? This is hands down the weirdest book I have ever read. I've heard some people really enjoy it. Me, it was like a 2, maybe a 2.5 star. It was too bizarre for me. I screenshotted this description because I truly did not even know how to describe it. Let me read it to you. Samantha Heather Mackey couldn't be more of an outsider in her small, highly selective program. A scholarship student who prefers the company of her dark imagination more than most people, she is utterly repelled by the rest of her fiction writing cohort. A clique of unbearably twee rich girls who call each other Bunny and seem to move and speak as one. But everything changes when Samantha receives an invitation to the Bunny's fabled smut salon and finds herself inexplicably drawn to their front door, ditching her only friend Ava in the process. As Samantha plunges deeper and deeper into the Bunny's sinister world, beginning to take part in the ritualistic off-campus workshop where they conjure their monstrous creations, the edges of reality begin to blur. Soon her friendships with Ava and the Bunnies will be brought into deadly collision. It is absolutely bonkers. Like, I read the book and I'm still like, what even happened? It went a little too off the rails for my taste, but if you're into that, be my guest. If you like Knives Out, I think that you will love this book. The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes revolves around Avery Grams, a high schooler hoping for a scholarship to escape to a better life. The scholarship, however, is no longer needed when she discovers she has been given Tobias Hawthorne's entire fortune. The thing is, she does not know who this man is.
I hate to say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is. I mean, he could be walking down the street, I I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to this man.
This means she must also live with the 4 Hawthorne grandsons and their family, who are all vying for a piece of Tobias's fortune. Everyone is trying to figure out Avery's connection to Tobias and why he gave the wealth away to her rather than his family. This is the first book of the series, so I will definitely be reading book 2 this year, and I rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This next one is The Guest by Emma Cline. It blew up on TikTok, so I had to check it out, and I liked it, but honestly, I think it's really overhyped. I feel like everybody was raving about it, and I just thought it was like fine. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's about a girl named Alex who is no longer welcome at a rich older man's house and has nowhere else to go. This book did not change my life, and honestly, not a ton was happening in it. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell was my final 5-star read of the year. My girl Lisa, she truly can do no wrong. This was so good. This book was a wild ride centered around Alex and Josie, 2 women who are birthday twins. Alex is a podcaster, and Josie believes that her life story might be an interesting topic for Alex to discuss on her podcast. As they delve deeper into Josie's story, Alex realizes that Josie is hiding some dark secrets before she suddenly disappears, causing Alex to become the subject of her own true crime podcast. I'm a big fan of true crime podcasts, and combining that medium with the gripping thriller made this quite a page turner. Unfortunately, after that high, I ended my year with a bit of a dud. The Dinner by Herman Koch was also on Book Talk with rave reviews. Maybe I just should stop trusting Book Talk. I don't know, you tell me. But to be honest, it was not one of my favorites. The vast majority of the story takes place over dinner between 2 brothers and their wives, with each couple having a 15-year-old son who is guilty of a horrible crime. Their dinner gets increasingly more tense, and then they finally arrive at the topic at hand. I feel like the plot sounds more interesting than it actually is. I was bored with it just being at a restaurant and kind of politely tiptoeing around the issue for, I feel like, what felt like the majority of the book before finally getting into the nitty-gritty. I felt like they tried to build up the suspense a little too much and just didn't discuss the boys really until late in the novel. So I rated this a 2.5. And that is the end of all the books I read in 2023. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know if you've read any of these. I hope it gives you inspiration for adding these books onto your TBR list. If you have any suggestions for me, please let me know. I have a very long TBR list as it is, but I am always looking for new suggestions. And yeah, let me know if you have a favorite off of my list, if you have a favorite book in general. And as always, I really appreciate you watching. I hope that you'll like, subscribe, and save this. And you can catch me on all my other socials as well. Happy reading, bye.